What's up, Buckeye fans? It's Patrick Murphy from Bucknuts and 24/7 Sports here with you for another episode of the Bucknuts Happy Hour. We are now 4 games through Ohio State's 2025 season. The Buckeyes remain undefeated after last week's win at Washington, the first Big Ten game, the first road test of the year, and they will return home this week to face Minnesota for the homecoming game. We're going to get to that. We're going to talk sort of assessing the Buckeyes here a third of the way through the regular season, how we feel like each position group is done and just the team overall. And then we're going to talk some Minnesota, get to know a little bit of the Gophers, but we'll get into that in a second. Before we get going, if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up button, hit that bell, leave us comments. All of that is important. Make sure you get all of our videos, not just our podcast, but also our video interviews. And now it's basketball season coming up. So we had media day yesterday. Steve Hellwagon has posted some videos. So make sure you get all of those by hitting that bell on our YouTube page. And then if you're listening to this on your podcast platform of choice, please leave us a 5-star review, comment, all that good stuff. We're going with something different today. It's called a mango ride. It is a wheat ale with natural flavors, only 4% alcohol by volume, so we're not getting too crazy today. But my future mother-in-law turned me on to these, and they're pretty good. We had them at my wedding shower over the summer, towards the end of the summer, and she sent us some home. So I'm gonna sip on one of these while we talk. All right, let's get into the Buckeyes and how we feel like this team has done a third of the way through the season. And to do that, we're going to bring in my coworker from Bucknuts and 24/7 Sports, Dave Biddle. Dave, sorry about your Reds. We were talking before you came on. You're not too disappointed in the way things went. At least you have the Buckeyes, though, right?
That's exactly right. Being a Bengals fan and a Reds fan, yeah. I always think, thank God I have the Buckeyes. By the way, I did not think you were going to lead off the show talking about how your mother-in-law turned you on. But hey, I guess, you got to do what you got to do, but good to be with you, my friend.
Speaking of Cincinnati, before we get into it, were you at the interview yesterday? I know you were over with Austin Sareveld. Did you hear when he was asked about the Reds?
Geez, I was over there for most of it. Was I?
It was right at the beginning.
For the vast majority. What did he say? Remind me.
He was asked if the Reds are going to win, and he basically said, I don't know, it's bad luck for a Cincinnati kid to cheer for Cincinnati sports. And I thought that was really funny and maybe a little true with the way things have gone recently. The Reds obviously making the playoffs is a big accomplishment, but the Bengals and the injuries they've had, and you could speak to it, but I just thought that was funny. I figured I'd bring it up when Austin Sareveld is poo-pooing the city of Cincinnati, and he, I believe, grew up not far from there.
Yeah, he grew up in you have the Lakota East and Lakota West, Westchester, which is a little bit outside of Cincinnati, both like suburbs, and you have Westchester's a suburb. So you have Sareveld from Lakota East, you have Tegras from Lakota West, and they I guess they did know each other. Like I asked Tegra one time about it. Like, did you guys know each other? He's like, not really. And then Sareveld was like, we actually did like a little bit. We just kind of forgot about it. Like we played against each other in some youth tournament way back in the day. But it's really cool seeing all of these Ohio offensive linemen. Man, you look at Luke Montgomery, and now they're adopting Carson Hinsman from Wisconsin as a fellow Ohioan. I like that. But what Saraveld's doing is so damn impressive, man.
Well, let's start there, and cheers to Cincinnati. I like the town of Cincinnati. Let's start with the offensive.
Bringing Reds tears tonight.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Let's start. We're going to go position by position, just kind of give our thoughts now that we're 4 games into the season, kind of assess where each group is. And we'll start with that offensive line. You and I talked about them earlier on in the week on the Instant Reaction Show. We talked about them on the BM5 on Wednesday. But if you were to grade, assess, however you want to do it, this offensive line, what are your thoughts? Where do you think this group is?
Yeah, I was bullish on them entering the season. I think they're a little bit of ahead of where I thought they'd be. And listen, they're still not like a dominant offensive line. They need to do a better job of run blocking. But man, overall, I'm very, very impressed with this offensive line. You look at Austin Sareveld, not giving up a sack through 4 games after never starting at left tackle would be impressive to me. He hasn't given up even a hurry. And, we asked him about that, obviously, the other night over at interviews. But so yeah, I mean, you look at what Saravel's doing at left tackle, which no one, if anybody predicted that in spring, I'd love to see them. No one predicted that. We all thought Ethan Oniano would be the left tackle, Saravel would be the right tackle, even after Austin played, guard last year, both guard spots. All those guys were playing well. Saravel at left tackle. Luke Montgomery played great this past game at left guard. So did Hinsman at center. Those guys like the offensive players of the week. Right guard, I like that there's like a battle there between Onionwa and Tegra. Right now, Tegra's got the job. Onionwa didn't even play this past game, but I still am hearing that is a battle that is going on. And then Philip Daniels has been, better than I expected at right tackle. Does he need to clean some stuff up? Of course, but he's a young guy, just a third-year sophomore, junkyard dog. So, yeah, man, I think they definitely need to get better, but I'm impressed with Tyler Bowen's room so far.
I think it's really interesting looking at this group, like how these guys all got to where they are. Like Carson Hinsman, starting 2 years ago, loses his job. We know the story, has to come in last year and play guard, then play center on the national championship run. Tegra's had probably the most normal progression of all of them, just slowly works his way up. Philip Daniels doesn't get recruited by Ohio State, goes to Minnesota, who he will face this weekend. Now he's back at Ohio State. Most people thought he would be a backup, myself included. He's the starter at right tackle. Luke Montgomery kind of had to work his way into it, similar to Tegra, but the way he came in last year and kind of forced his way into a rotation at left guard in the college football playoff. And then Austin Saravel, like that's a guy who could play any position on the offensive line. We asked a few weeks ago, how long would it take you to play center? And he said probably a day. And it's just like,
I believe him.
Yeah. I mean, what he's done.
What can this kid do? He works his ass off. He's a good young man. I mean, like, I can't say enough nice things about Austin Saravel. He's like, he might have been the unsung hero of last year's team. I mean, like this year, I think maybe he's more the sung hero.
Yeah, I think it's just remarkable. I think it started towards the end of last year with sort of the adversity that they faced, losing Josh Simmons and credit Justin Fry for some of that. And then what Tyler Bowen, as you mentioned, has come in to do. I think it's been as good as could be expected, if not better, sort of as you said. Let's move to the quarterback, Julian Sayin. And you can even throw a little Lincoln Kienholz in there if you want with some snaps that he's gotten. But, I'll kind of start. I don't know what my expectations were. Like I thought Julian Sayin would be good. But you just never know until you see it, right? Especially at the quarterback position. We wanted to see how he responded on the road last week. Look, the kid is unflappable. His arm talent is legitimate. I think the only thing that has held him back from, really kind of vaulting into a top quarterback Heisman Trophy conversation this year is that the Buckeyes have chosen and haven't needed to really unleash him. The Texas game, that was very intentional. The first half of the Washington game, they certainly were easing him into that. Didn't want to see any mistakes. But he can make big throws. He's 9 for 9 on deep balls. I'm not sure, other than maybe him running a little bit more, what else you'd want to see from him right now through 4 games.
And now we saw him run a little bit, which is
a
great.
Little bit, yeah.
You don't need exactly what he did against Washington was exactly what I'm talking about. And I know on that one, he came like a half yard short, but he almost got a cheap first down there. Cheap meaning awesome. And then even the other one, he like put him in like much better field goal position. I love that. I am thrilled with where Julian Sayin is at after 4 games. Like I am convinced, like if he needed to air it out, they'd be okay. They'd be 4-0 right now. Nothing would change. But like, why risk? If you're Ryan Day, why risk it? Ryan Day is like chomping at the bit to be like, let's just take some shots downfield. Like, offense is his baby, and more specifically, quarterback is his baby. And he knows that they could be taking more shots downfield, but he also knows early in the season, first year starting quarterback, our defense is just crushing everybody. They've definitely been conservative. I do think they're going to take the chains off a little bit this week, and I think that Ohio State's going to attack Minnesota down the field more. Patrick, the thing I've been most impressed with, which is crazy to say based on the fact that his accuracy is like the best in the country, I think I might be more impressed with his poise. I go back and forth. I'm like, no, I'm more impressed with the accuracy. No, it's the poise. okay, let's call it a tie, as I said in one of my like columns. Like, we can call it a tie, but like, man, his poise for like a young guy is just it's so damn impressive, because we've seen guys that are like, okay, it doesn't really bother them that much. CJ Stroud's a good example, but like, he looked nervous at times as a redshirt freshman. You don't see Sayan ever look nervous. So it's his poise, it's his accuracy, his quick release, his processing skills. Yeah, I love everything about it. Now he's running a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy after all these years with Ohio State. Not having a great quarterback. When I was growing up, like, as just an Ohio State fan, like, there was good quarterbacks, but there was this like few and far between. And then like Ryan Day gets here and it's like boom, 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 boom. It's just crazy what's going on at the quarterback position for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, going back to the running, I was rewatching that Penn State-Oregon game this week, and Drew Aller, bigger, obviously, not a great runner, but he had some really well-timed runs. He did that against Ohio State last year too, late in the game. Like, if Julian Sayin can develop into that, and I think similar to what he did at Washington, maybe as he gets more comfortable with it, you see it a little more. He's not going to be a runner. Like, when I spoke to his high school coach for the piece I did last week on Julian, he said he is definitely not a dual threat quarterback, but he's also definitely not a pocket passer. He was like, I don't know what the terminology is for the type of quarterback that Julian is, but he's somewhere in between and can do the things you need him to do on both ends. So
not a statue.
No,
yeah,
definitely not.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, Joe Burrow might be a little bit better at scrambling than Julian, but it reminds me a little bit of that. Like, you know, he reminds me of Joe Germain in a lot of ways. A better version of Joe Germain, because Joe Germain just had that quick release and just accuracy. He's better than that. And Germain was sneaky, like, you know, mobile. You weren't going to major in it, not even minor in it. But like, yeah, I mean, like, I agree with that. Like, you wouldn't call him a dual threat, but you certainly wouldn't call him somebody who's just a statue in the pocket. So, yeah, I'm very, very encouraged with what I've seen on all fronts from Julian Sayin, and the best is yet to come.
The wide receivers should be easy. We know they're good, right? But let me ask you this, and we don't need to spend too much time on the wide receivers. Everyone knows about them. But is there anything that surprised you about this wide receiver group so far this year?
Not really. Because everybody expected, well, this is going to be the year they use the fourth receiver and the fifth receiver. Like, no, like, Brian Hartline's been very clear about this. Like, and like, even if he wasn't clear about it, the data backs it up. If you're not in the top three, you're not going to play much. Now, do I think Mylan Graham should be playing more? Yes, I do. But like, it's like, there's only one ball to go around, you know? I mean, so like, how much would he even like add to this offense? But yeah, so not too many surprises. Like, I know like people are probably surprised Max Claire's not getting more receptions after like all the hype around him. But again, I would say like very few possessions, a lot of great weapons on this offense, defense that is just smothering people. So, like, let it play out. Like, some of these guys that are not getting the stats that we expected, I think will get the stats eventually. Nothing has surprised me too much at the wide receiver position, though. I thought Jeremiah would be basically doing what he's doing. I maybe expected Carnell's stats to be a little better at this point. But, again, that goes back to the fact that, like, they haven't had to do that. Like, if they needed to air it out against Texas, I think they would have and would have been successful. Same thing with Washington. They didn't need to. Nothing too much has surprised me with the wide receivers.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is I thought we might get more from Brandon Inniss. Now, again, I think to your point, that still could very much – we could look back at the end of the season and be like, oh, yeah, he started slow, but his numbers ended right where we expected it to be. Some of that has been the conservative nature of the offense, but even in the OU and Grambling State game, like, I don't know, like maybe it's watching Emeka Egbuka, Garrett Wilson and those guys, but I thought that slot receiver would be more involved than he has. And again, there will be time for that. You touched on the tight end, so we'll go there next. That's a group that we heard a lot of hype about going into the season with people referring to them, including Keenan Bailey, hinting at it, that this is the deepest group in the country. I think so far you've seen a lot of the good. They've had 4 tight ends on the field on plays, which is not something I expected, Urban Meyer on to see from Ohio State anymore. I think, Max Claire, yes, he hasn't been the pass heavy or the reception heavy guy that maybe people thought, but I think he's still executing the way they'd like him to. I think Will Kazmarek continues to be the best or one of the best blocking tight ends in college football. Jelani Thurman has made plays. Bennett Christian, I know he did not play last week, but he's made plays. Even Nate Roberts getting in to play that fullback role. I know that he missed the block against Washington, but I think for the most part, he's handled that well for a freshman who's not actually a fullback. So what's your assessment on tight ends?
Yeah, I think I still maintain this is the best tight end room I've seen. Like, if they setting the world on fire, no. But again, we're 1/3 of the way through the regular season. And I think there's going to be a postseason too. Breaking news, right? So it'll work out. I get it. If you look at it right now, you're like, man, Max Clare's not setting the world on fire, and Johnny Thurman only has. Listen, these guys they look good, as you said, Patrick. Kaz Merrick might be the best blocking tight end in the country, and he's no slouch in the running game. It's 6'6", 260. Is he a burner? No, but he catches the ball well. He's physical. I just love this tight end room when you have Max Clare, who's basically, this is one of the reasons I think Brandon Ennis' stats are a little bit down, is because Clare is basically like a slot receiver, whereas Kaz Merrick's more the traditional Ohio State tight end. Jelani Thurman is straight out of central casting for a tight end. You have Bennett Christian. You have the aforementioned Nate Roberts, who's any other year, there's no way he'd be seeing the field right now. But he's just too good, because you have 4 tight ends ahead of him that are all older than him and playing well. And they're well, he's too good. We need to make sure we play him. Yes, he missed that block, like you said, but I've been impressed with him since the spring, how he looked in the spring. I'm geez, I thought this kid would redshirt for sure. Especially after Claire transferred in, and they're no, he's going to play. I'm well, we'll see. No, he's playing. And yeah, he missed a block. I'm telling you, man, this is the best tight end room I can remember. Now, do they have a John Frank in the room? Do they have a Ricky Dudley in the room? Maybe not, but 1 through 5, I can't remember a better tight end room than this one.
Moving on to running backs. Look, I think the stats aren't there. They aren't running the ball as well as I think they would have liked. The numbers aren't actually that far off from last year, when they were a pretty good running team, I would say. The short yardage stuff is still a work in progress. I think CJ Donaldson needs to sort of master that. That's what he was brought in to do. We've seen the emergence of Bo Jackson. I think it's a good thing that the staff has reacted to that instead of the Dallin Hayden situation where we're asking every week why Bo Jackson isn't getting more carries. I would love to see James Peoples sort of become what I thought James Peoples would be and make it a 3-back rotation there. But I think for the most part, you're okay. You'd like more. You'd like to see some guys hit some more big plays against Power 4 teams. But, with an offense that is still finding itself, I think that the running backs are doing a solid job. And that's not to mention pass blocking, things like that they also have to do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Bo Jackson is the best running back on this team. I think everybody who's watched Ohio State through the first 4 games would agree. That being said, I would say that, I think Ohio State's fortunate to have the depth they have after having the best tandem at running back that I've seen with Travion and Quinshawn last year. But yeah, there's no question, as you know, that Bo Jackson's the best running back on this team. He's a big play waiting to happen, but he's also stout enough to get tough yards. He's 217 pounds. It's we're not talking about a 195-pound true freshman who's he's a big play waiting to happen, but can he take a hit? Can he fall forward? He falls forward way better than CJ Donaldson does. CJ's getting knocked backwards a lot at 232. Bo just has a nice, a little bit of wiggle. Once he hits contact, he has a way of falling forward. Just a sign of a great running back. They're going to make the first man miss more often than not. They're going to fall forward after contact more often than not. That's what I'm seeing out of Bo Jackson. That being said, I think having the depth there is huge. I think Bo Jackson, whether he starts this week or not, he is the starting running back. He had 17 carries this past game, even coming off the bench. He's the main guy. And I think having CJ Donaldson and James Peoples' depth is, or having them for depth is good for this team for sure, because we know injuries can happen quickly at the running back position.
Flipping over to the defensive side, defensive line, we knew coming in the depth at defensive tackle was going to be a question. I think some people had question about the ends. I think you saw last week how good they can be with the way that they handled Damon Williams Jr. The sacks have started to come along as well, which was a little bit slow early in the season. I know you're going to talk about the depth at D tackle, but what overall do you think of this defensive line?
Yeah, it's interesting to me that myself included, I'll be first in the line. We were all like Kenyatta Jackson hype, right? Hey, about this Bo Atkinson guy coming in from North Carolina. And again, to be clear, I think Kenyatta Jackson's played really well. I think Bo Atkinson has played really well. No one was talking about Caden Curry. And he was a solid player the last 3 years. Played as a true freshman on this team. This kid he was a relatively big-time recruit, high 4-star. There's no reason he should have flown under the radar coming into the year, but he did. And as good as Jackson is playing, as good as Atkinson is playing, I think C.J. Hicks's role is cool. Logan George is going to make an impact. Nobody was talking enough about Caden Curry. He's playing at an All-American level. So that's huge for this defense. There's no doubt in my mind Caden Curry is the best defensive end on this team. And again, that's huge because it's not like, oh, he's the best because Kenyatta Jackson and Atkinson aren't really playing well. No, those guys, as I said, are playing very well. It's just Caden Curry is just playing awesome. He's taking his game to another level. Caden McDonald might be the best one-tech DT in the country. If there's a better one, I'd love to see him. He's just a game wrecker in there. He's everything you want as a one-tech because he's huge, he's stout, he's strong. They list him at 327. Jeez, he's probably at least 350, but I love it because why? Because he's an unusually quick for a man that size. He plays with outstanding effort. I love Cade McDonald. Yes, they need better depth at D tackle because they're going to talk up Tywone Malone. He's been solid, but they need better than that. They need Edric Houston to come out of his shell and be more productive and not have stupid penalties. Edric Houston is the missing piece on this defensive line. I love what they're doing at defensive end. They're awesome. They're deep, especially with Caden Curry doing what he's doing. Defensive tackle, they're in good shape with McDonald being perhaps the best one tech in the country and Malone being solid at the 3-tech. Will Smith Jr. coming off the bench, but they need Edric Houston to get his act together. No doubt about it.
Yeah, that's the one thing for me because I agree with everything you said there is I don't know if disappointed is the right word, but just I thought Edric Houston would have this big breakout. And, maybe it's the knee injury from the preseason that's still bugging him. Maybe there's more to it. We said the other day on the BM5, he's playing this position for the first time for a full season. Last year, obviously, at this point in the year, he was a defensive end or starting his transition to defensive tackle. So I get it. But I do think that, there were high expectations for this kid. And the fact that he, started the season a bit slow, has kind of lost that job. I'm glad to see he's still playing. He hasn't been completely taken out of the equation altogether. I think that's a positive sign. But I think you need to see more from him. The linebackers, I'm going to give you one word, Dave, and you tell me if you disagree at all. Outstanding.
I thought you were going to send it to me. I was going to go phenomenal. I don't think we can go either way. They're outstandingly phenomenal. How about that? We'll combine them.
Yeah.
I seriously, Pat, I don't remember a better linebacking crew than this. And I remember AJ Hawk and Bobby Carpenter and Schlegel well. And those guys are now going to beat my face in for saying that these guys are better. No, I love
Bobby might.
We've seen that. Well, any of them could. Schlegel could probably take. No, I'm kidding. No. Any of them could, and those guys were awesome. I love those guys, and I still love them to this day. And I can even go way back in the day, thinking about gosh, are we really going to put these guys over? Maybe okay. I might take it back now. We're really going to 1985. I was a little kid, but Pepper Johnson and Chris Spielman probably is the gold standard. But man, Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese are right there knocking on that door. They're right there knocking on the door, and then they have Peyton Pierce coming in. This might be the best linebacking crew that I've ever seen at Ohio State, including Pepper Johnson and Chris Spielman, two other guys that are going to come just annihilate my face for saying that. I think Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese might be the best I've ever seen.
For me, it's the athleticism, just the way that Arvell Reese closed on Damon Williams on that play last week down in the red zone. That's not what a normal linebacker is able to do. Damon Williams isn't used to seeing a guy who can catch him that quickly. Sonny Styles, same thing. I think they've both been just outstanding. It's not just athletes, right? They also understand the position. Sonny's made a great transition down from safety now in year 2. Arvell, has shown quite the IQ to play that position as well. And I like what we've seen from Peyton Pierce. I'm excited. You don't want to see these guys leave, but I am excited for what's next with Peyton Pierce sort of leading that group.
And Riley Pettijohn. And
yeah, exactly. Cornerbacks, are you using the same word?
They've been phenomenal. Yeah, I'll use the same word. I mean, IGB, his tackling is so damn impressive, and like now he's not giving up penalties. He's always been good in coverage. I love how physical he is. Like we've talked about this, like as a 6'2" corner with long arms. Usually those guys are not good in like run support. He's great in run support. I love what Jermaine Matthews is doing. I just like this secondary overall. They're so well coached with Tim Walton and Matt Guerreri, and of course Matt Patricia, what he's doing. But everybody else on the staff is a carryover. I think that's huge. That Matt Patricia's doing a great job, and I've been like screaming that from the top of Morrill Tower. Like Matt Patricia's doing a great job, great hire. But it does help not only having this awesome personnel that they have, like despite losing 8 draft picks off the defense. Larry Johnson's back as D-line coach. James Laurinaitis returns as linebacker coach. Guerreri, Walton back as secondary coaches. Yeah, man, I couldn't be more impressed with the secondary. They were definitely best in America, which is what they like to say, BIA, last year. They lose 3 draft picks off that secondary. And, man, I don't think they've missed a beat. I think the only position that is like taking maybe a little bit step back might be slot nickel, because Jordan Hancock, and that's nothing against Lorenzo Styles Jr. He had that one bad play against Ohio. Overall, he's been really good. Jordan Hancock was just really good. I thought Jalen McClain would be really good, but it would definitely be a step down from Lathan Ransom. And maybe it has been. I haven't noticed that so far, and that's a high freaking bar. Lathan Ransom had a great year last year. Not a good year, a great year. Jalen McClain is playing kind of on that level, dare I say. He still needs to do it through 16 games or 15 games like Lathan did, 16 games. But then you look at what Caleb Downs is doing. He's a better version of what he was last year as a first-team All-American. So I do think they have the best secondary in college football. Again, having a true freshman like Devin Sanchez getting in there and playing as much as he has is good for business too.
Yeah, the only thing I will say different from that is I won't say I'm still waiting to see it from Jalen McClain, but I just want a bigger sample size, like you were saying. It's only 4 games. I think he's been really good, but have they really been tested yet? I know Damon Williams can throw, down the seams. He was doing that against them. I want to see a quarterback that can test these safeties, because Jalen McClain's sometimes being left as the deep safety by himself when Caleb Downs comes down. I think he can do it, but you know me, I'm always kind of a wait and see type of guy. And I just want to see, I want to see him continue to get tested, because I think it's there, especially playing alongside Caleb Downs. But I would like to see, a quarterback that can maybe cause them some issues and see them excel that way. All right, Dave, last thing for me. I've been meaning to ask people this for a long time, and I often forget. And I don't know if I've ever asked you this. If you're hanging out, nice day, drinking in outside patio, at a bar, whatever, what is your go-to beer?
Ooh, that's a good one. Are we talking about like first beer? So you don't have, there's no pre-gaming, right?
Yeah.
You're not trying to
you're picking.
You're not already buzzed, and you're like, I can't get like an IPA or something like that, right? Because you're already like too buzzed. Oh, that's a good question, man. I'm gonna go local. I like my. I know this is basic. I like my Columbus IPA, Columbus Brewing Company. It always like hits right. It's got, but you don't want to have too many of those.
It's dangerous.
If you've already had like pre-gaming, you might not even want to have one of those. But I also like the Truth. You can't handle the Truth. You probably can handle the Truth. I saw the videos from Seattle. That was awesome. I'll go with Columbus Brewing Company IPA. It's just, I don't know. It's very hoppy, but not like crazy. It has good like percentage of alcohol. That's my go-to. What about you?
All right. My go-to is a Bud Light.
All right, Post Malone. I like it.
Yeah. Well, it's from St. Louis, but I'll drink anything. You know me, when you've never seen me turn down a beer.
I don't know why people like talk crap about like Bud Light. Like, okay, like for a while there, it was like, okay, so we can just get like free Bud Light. Okay,
Yeah, that's a separate conversation for a very different podcast, probably with some different people on it. But all right, Dave, thanks for jumping on. This was fun. And I will talk to you, if not before, I will talk to you Saturday night after the game.
Sounds good. You should stop by the pregame show that I do.
Oh, yeah, I'll probably walk by. I usually walk by.
Well, you usually walk by and wave. You don't come over and say hi, but
well, I can come say hi. I never want to interrupt.
There you go. There you go.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. See ya. All right. Thanks to Dave Biddle for jumping on here, talking some Buckeyes with us. Some good stuff there as we kind of assessed the Buckeyes through 4 games. But now we're going to get to this week's opponent, Minnesota. And to do that, we are going to bring in Ryan Burns of Gopher Illustrated, the 24/7 sports Minnesota site. Ryan, how you doing, my man?
I'm well. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. Let's get into it. First, I want to ask you just about kind of the vibes of this team as they head into this primetime game in Columbus. Obviously, a 3-1 start. You get first win in the Big Ten. The one road game is the one loss. So just what is the feeling around the program, around the fan base as they head to Columbus?
I think there's some nervous excitement to find out what this team is about, where the Cal game didn't go like they thought it was going to go. I think we can get into the stats about Big Ten teams traveling 2 or more time zones. And I know Ohio State seems to be about one of 2 teams in this conference immune to that. But last year when Big Ten teams, now it's not a perfect sample size, when they went against other Big Ten teams, when they went 2 or more time zones, they were 6-22. And I think I saw Bill Conley tweet already this season that when Minnesota played out in Berkeley, it was a 9:30 local time start in Central Time. And teams by that point were like 1-10. If you were the road team in a 9 p.m. kickoff or later, I mean, that game ended after midnight. I mean, this isn't quite Michigan State taking on USC at 11 p.m. Eastern.
Right.
But it was a weird game, and things are liable to happen like that. So they're 3-1. The over/under for this team heading into the season was 6.5. Now Minnesota has easily hit the over on that, and I think the last 5 full seasons around there, 4 of the last 5, because this is a team that has finished above 500 in conference play in 4 of the last 5 full seasons. So there's a lot of new faces getting run because Minnesota had to replace 6 guys that made 53-man rosters from last year's team, and unlike Ohio State, who doesn't have to rebuild, they get to reload. Minnesota is more of a rebuild kind of a team. So we've seen a lot of guys get their first reps, and with that comes learning experiences.
When you look at this game in particular, what has to happen? And we sort of touched on this in the written pieces we did, but what has to happen for Minnesota to come in and spring an upset, put a scare in the Buckeyes, that type of thing?
Their freshman quarterback, Drake Lindsey, has to play like he's been playing. And that's where it is fascinating to me. And again, I'm not entrenched in it locally in Columbus or even nationally in the Big Ten, but Drake Lindsey is currently the top-rated quarterback in the Big Ten, via Pro Football Focus or either overall grade, passing grade. And I understand that it hasn't been Texas and Washington like Ohio State fans have seen, but Drake Lindsey, for a redshirt freshman in his 4 career starts, has been pretty good. He's been pretty inflappable. He's been very composed. Now, it's going to be a different beast on Saturday night when you're the homecoming opponent for 100,000 screaming fans, and that's something he's never played in. Combine that with an offensive line that we're going to find out what they do with whatever the snap count is with the creatures that Ohio State has on defense, but their quarterback has to be upright, and if he's upright, they got to get the ball out quick against this Buckeye front 7. If Drake Lindsey can do something that Arch Manning wasn't able to do against Matt Patricia's defense, or Damon Williams wasn't able to do, and just move the ball consistently, I'm well aware of how diabolically good this Ohio State defense has been in the red zone, on third down, however you want to view it, 5.5 points per game. Nobody scored 10 on them. But I am intrigued to see if Drake Lindsey can stay upright and he doesn't let the pressure of the moment where there's 100,000 fans screaming at him get to him. I'm very intrigued to see what they can do. And then defensively, can they keep this Ohio State offense from being explosive? And I've said this already, but I'm not entrenched in Columbus like you. It is truly fascinating for me to see that Ohio State, of all teams, with the freaks you guys got running around like Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Bo Jackson, whoever you want to name here, is below Minnesota in explosive plays. And I define an explosive play as 20 yards or more. So if Ohio State drives the field and goes 10-play scoring drives, so be it. But Minnesota cannot allow Smith, Tate, Max Clare, whoever it may be, to get loose in space. And if they can, this thing might get a little interesting on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's been interesting the way teams have defended Ohio State. We saw it some last year too, kind of putting a top on the defense, right?
Yep.
Hey, if you're going to score, you're going to march play by play down the field. They have hit a few big plays. I think Julian Sands 9 for 9 on passes over 20 yards, but I think they've accepted, hey, we'll take what the defense gives us and try and fight that way. How do you expect Minnesota to? Did you expect that type of approach from PJ Fleck in this defense, or do you think they'll do anything differently?
That's a great question. I think they would take the same approach as everybody else and say, Brian Hartline, design a script for consistently to start the game that can move the ball against us and then adjust as we adjust. I think for Minnesota, when you're a 23.5-point underdog coming into this game, in the first half of this game, you better throw whatever you have at Ohio State. And if you're down 24-3 at halftime, sure, you can, as the kids would say, sim to the end. And you can live to see another day where they're 3 of your next 4 at home and it's much more attainable. But I need to see Minnesota come out with a game plan that shows that they're trying to win. And I believe that they will put together a game plan, and they have, that they think this is the best way forward. We're just trying to see, especially on offense, is their best player going to return? Darius Taylor, who injured himself in the non-conference soft tissue injury. It'll be 28 days once this Ohio State game comes since he was injured. I think there's a pretty good shot that he makes his Big Ten debut on Saturday night. We'll find out 2 hours before. That's the favorite thing of the head coach of Minnesota to say is anytime we ask about injuries, it's a smirk, a sly grin, and then you'll find out 2 hours ahead of time. But defensively, it's tackle well in space because, I've listened to you guys all week, and I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. Whether it's C.J. Donaldson, whether it's Bo Jackson in the run game, or whether it's the freaks that you got on the outside, if you don't tackle well in this game, may the Lord bless you and keep you trying to keep this Ohio State offense off the board.
You mentioned Drake Lindsey. You mentioned Darius Taylor. Let's start with Lindsey. You talked about him a little bit, but what makes the redshirt freshman so good? What are you excited to see him try to do at the very least against Ohio State on Saturday night?
Yeah, the moment just hasn't been too big for him. And I'm cognizant that everything is relative, and this will be the most difficult environment he's played in his entire life. He's a guy from Fayetteville, Arkansas. Family who grew up big Arkansas people. He's never played in a stadium with 100,000 people in it. Certainly rooting against him. So trying to see if the kid that we've seen through 4 games, which is composed, the moment hasn't been too big, he doesn't get sped up when the pressure gets around him, can that translate into a national TV spot against the number 1 team in the country? Because we've seen it so many times before, and Minnesota wouldn't be unique to this, and neither would Drake Lindsey as a redshirt freshman in a big spot game and a national game against the number 1 team in the country, gets sped up, and he looks like a freshman. We just haven't seen Lindsey look like a freshman. Now, he's not the most fleet of foot. He's 6'5", 230 pounds. He's got a great arm. He's been very accurate. You look at his ADOT. He's got one of the best ADOTs of any Big Ten quarterback. It's, I believe, at 10 yards per attempt, which is 3rd best in the Big Ten. So Minnesota likes to push the ball down the field. The question is, will he have time to push the ball down the field? Because this is an offensive line that has struggled a little bit on the right side of their offensive line. They're starting some new pieces from last year. They got 5 new starters from last year starting at different spots. And they haven't seen Caden Curry or Kenyatta Watson or whatever it is that Matt Patricia is going to throw at them. And that's something that the offensive coordinator, Greg Harbaugh, talked about was you put on the tape of Matt Patricia in 4 games at Ohio State. It's 4 different game plans where it's because Ohio State has the athletes that they have and the depth that they have. They can go 3 down, 4 down, 5 down. They can do different things in coverage. And I'm sure that's why Matt Patricia took the job, is he knows that he can run this NFL scheme. And I would argue, and this is, you can take this as you will, Last week, Minnesota went against Rob Smith. He got fired from Minnesota back in 2018. I'm pretty unclear of why he's continuing to remain a defensive coordinator at the Power 4 level. But going from preparing for a Rob Smith defense to Matt Patricia, maybe among the biggest jumps up in competition any Big Ten team has to see. So we'll see how Lindsey and Harbaugh handle it on Saturday night.
If Darius Taylor is back, what kind of boost is this for the offense? What kind of back is he for Buckeye fans who haven't watched much of the Gophers this year?
Yeah, he is, excuse me, a kind of modern NFL back. And what I mean by that is he's very good in the pass game. He caught over 50 passes last year, something to where Minnesota loves to use him as a check down. They love to use him on, say, a wheel route, love to use him in the passing game. Now, the question is if he does play, and I think that is still a big if. We don't get to go to practice. We haven't in many, many years during the season for PJ Fleck. So I'm speculating here, but if he is back, I'm very curious to see what his snap count is like. I don't think that if he is back, he'll get a full workload, but he's an all Big Ten caliber back. He is someone that is more north-south than he is east-west, but he's very good in the phone booth at making the first man miss. He does have a little bit of deep speed. He's got a couple of 60-plus yard touchdowns in his career. If Taylor can't go, you're going to see a two-headed monster of Femi Ijiboy and Cam Davis. I say monster in a little bit of air quotes because Minnesota's run game has been maddeningly inconsistent, and I think that starts up front for them. The Minnesota Moving Company has been much better in the pass protection game than they have been executing run game assignments. So I am very curious to see, because last week against Rutgers, we saw to start the second half, Minnesota just completely abandoned the run game. And they said, Drake Lindsey dropped back to pass 20 times. That has to be a modern record for a Fleck offense who I'm sure many fans know that PJ Fleck is synonymous with row the boat. Well, RTB just doesn't mean that. It also means run the ball. And we've seen him have to adapt to what the strengths of this team is right now, and that is through the air. So I'm very curious to see what the approach is from Harbaugh and his staff on these first 30 minutes.
Coy Perch is a guy who Ohio State was heavily recruiting. Obviously, he ends up with the Gophers. How has he been? And what does he kind of add to this defense that, at least statistically, has been pretty good through the first 4 games?
Yeah, the Coy Parrish story is one I won't soon forget, where for those that remember, Ryan Day flies into Duluth, Minnesota. And if you're thinking to yourself, where in the world is Duluth, Minnesota, and why is Ryan Day flying into it? It is a small airport in northern Minnesota right on Lake Superior that I don't think anybody has ever flown into, especially not a blue blood head coach. And Friday before signing day, makes his final pitch to Coy, and he ends up signing with Minnesota, was an all Big Ten player, incredibly impactful his true freshman season, leading the entire Big Ten in interceptions. It's been a slower start for him this season. I think there was just too much on his plate in the non-conference, where Minnesota was trying to do some Travis Hunter type of vibes, where I wouldn't even say Travis Hunter. I know that this is a school I don't know that I'm allowed to talk about on this podcast, but think about what they did, or Michigan did, with Jabril Peppers back in the day.
Yeah.
Where he played, say, 50 snaps a season on offense and was more of a gadget guy. That was kind of the role that Coy had. Plus, he's their kick and punt returner. Plus, he was the full-time safety. In that Cal game, he made some gaffes that I don't know that he's ever made in his entire athletic career. And so coming off of the bye, they took him off of offense. He was been full-time on defense, had one of his best performances with 11 total tackles, a huge sack of Athan Kaliakmanis. He has been razor close 4 or 5 times to that interception, but it has eluded him. He and Kerry Brown are 2 all Big Ten caliber players from Minnesota on the back end. And then the best player on their defense, and a guy that I am just perplexed why no one is talking about him, because he's got 16.5 tackles for loss in his last 11 games, is Anthony Smith.
Yeah.
Someone that came to Minnesota as a 4-star out of Pennsylvania. Minnesota got him out from underneath the nose of James Franklin, and he has just developed into a monster. He's 6'6", 280 pounds, more of a power rusher than he is a speed guy, but he can line up anywhere from 7 technique to 3 technique, wherever Minnesota thinks that they can get the best rush out of him. He's been incredibly productive. He's had 9 consecutive games with at least 1 tackle for loss.
Philip Daniels was obviously a guy who played at Minnesota last year, started, I think, the last 4 games for the Gophers. I would say that, at least from what we've heard, that the departure was not the most amicable when he decided to transfer back to Ohio, go to Ohio State. What is your understanding, or what can you say, I guess, about Philip Daniels, his departure, and now being at Ohio State?
Oh, I'd say this. I think Ohio State gets what Ohio State wants, and I don't think anybody will enforce that. I mean, I ain't here to tell you Minnesota's little brothers of the poor, but compared to Ohio State, they are at least $100 million behind in athletic revenue. I'm not asking you to play the world's saddest song and the world's smallest violin for them. But when I heard the rumblings that Ohio State was poking around there, I mean, he's an Ohio kid, grew up a Buckeye fan. I got it. It's just, it kind of is what it is in this world where I don't know what tampering is anymore. But the reality is, Philip Daniels wanted to go to Ohio State, and whether what the money was, what it wasn't, he wanted to be a Buckeye, and he got the opportunity. He's run with it. Now he's been the starter at right tackle. I think you've seen the Philip Daniels experience where he plays to the whistle, through the whistle, might get himself in trouble here at any point, but he is an incredibly athletic kid. He's got a great demeanor, plays incredibly hard. I think his best football is ahead of him. I just know that Minnesota would have loved to kept him at tackle.
Are you surprised at all that he won the right tackle job?
I don't know who he was competing with. I am surprised that he did, just because the Philip Daniels experience where he started the final few games of the season for Minnesota there was incredibly up and down. Mm-hmm. There were moments where he was very, very good, and there were moments where he was a liability. Now, that comes with any freshman starting in the Big Ten on the offensive line, and he's not immune to that. I don't know what the other options were for Ohio State. I'm not trying to poo-poo Philip Daniels. I think, like I said, I think he's incredibly talented, and Minnesota would have loved to have kept him. He was fun to watch during his time here at Minnesota. But for him to win it and then continue to get better, I'll say, doesn't surprise me, at least.
Yeah, I was surprised. I'll say that. I did not expect him to start right away. All right, Ryan, last thing. I think you heard me ask Dave this. Your go-to beer, go-to drink, whatever it is, if you're, hanging out outside, nice day, what do you go with?
Well, I'm going to alienate some people with this statement. I think IPAs are trash, and they should immediately be dumped down the drain. And you can't convince me that thing that you need to choke down to tell your friends how hip and cool you are is something that you actually enjoy. I'd probably go with whatever the Pilsner or whatever light beer to me. Again, I'm not incredibly picky on beer. I just cannot stand IPAs. Now, I'm just a man in his 30s, and it is what it is. But I cannot get behind IPAs. So I know I was at a wedding last weekend. I was alternating between, whatever the Pilsner was and like a Bud Light. There's nothing wrong with a crisp Bud or Coors Light. I will say that. I know it gets a bad rap at times, and I'm not here to tell you it's the most flavorful beer, but it's still a good beer.
Agree 100%, 100%. And I'm not picky either. So, maybe we're not the best people to ask, but yes, I will drink those. All right, Ryan. Well, thank you very much for your time. That was very informative, and I appreciate you coming on.
Sounds good. I'll see you in the press box on Saturday.
All right. Sounds good, man. All right. Thanks again to Ryan Burns from Gopher Illustrated, the 24/7 Sports Minnesota site. Check out Ryan's work over there. They have been covering this all week from the Gopher side, and PJ Fleck and company over there. So if you want to see that, check it out. It's a great part of what you get when you are a part of the 24/7 Sports family. We're going to wrap up as we normally do during game weeks, sort of the look ahead. This will be Sunday morning, what the headline will be. Look, I think that this is a game that if the Buckeyes go out and do what they should do, or what they're capable of doing, what we saw them do the last few weeks, this should be, no offense to Minnesota, but this should be a game where they can, comfortably win in the Big Ten. I don't know if this is a game where you have your starters out in the fourth quarter or not. Yeah, I think there's a possibility of that depending on how Minnesota handles things. But for me, this is not one when I look at the schedule where I'm circling it and saying, watch out, this could be a tricky one. I haven't watched every Minnesota game. I did watch that whole Cal game. I've watched bits and pieces of others. But I think even, hearing from Ryan there, they have some guys, both sides of the ball. I don't think this is going to be like a Grambling State game, but, if you go out, the defense continues to play with the tear on fire the way it has, which I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. I think this is a game where you probably unleash Julian Sayin a bit more. And I think that doing so, you saw it sort of in the second half last week, that opens up things for the run game. And, the run, I thought the run game was doing well last week, especially as I watched the game back. That first drive, they're moving the ball down the field pretty well, mostly through runs. They got CJ Donaldson to the outside. I liked some of the calls. It was really that second possession after you lose the fumble on the punt return where I think things got, maybe you throw a little bit more there. They ran too much on first down. But once they sort of started to play, complementary balanced football, let Julian Sayin get to his weapons. Okay, now you're spreading things out. The run game has more room, and we can go. So I think if that is the plan for this weekend, I think the Buckeyes will move. I think people should enjoy this night game. I know it's not Penn State, it's not Texas, but this is a step in the right direction, hopefully, with the Big Ten night game against a 3-1 opponent. Let's just call it what it is. I don't think that Minnesota is at the bottom of the Big Ten. This isn't Purdue. Again, no offense to Purdue. So I think that enjoy that you've got a night game. Celebrate it, tailgate, whatever you're going to do. As we know, these don't come around so often. I'm hoping that this is, for Buckeye fans' sake, a sign that the Big Ten is trying to get the Buckeyes more night games to be able to, really have that atmosphere and everything that everyone loves. But headline, I think Buckeyes roll, Minnesota, prepare for tougher challenges ahead, which includes next weekend at Illinois. I know Illinois, the loss to Indiana is going to be on everyone's mind. They did bounce back. It was a weird game against USC. It wasn't a dominant performance, but I think USC is a pretty solid team. So I think, you've got a good team coming up. The one thing, and I saved this for last, the one thing is if the Buckeyes are looking ahead to that game. And I don't think they will be. This isn't a Penn State. This isn't, a named team in Illinois, but it's a good Illinois team. That's the only way I see the Buckeyes sort of tripping themselves up. I still don't think they would lose, but I think they, it's a comfortable win for Ohio State on Saturday night. You're waking up Sunday morning happy. If you're a Browns fan, you're waking up ready to watch that game in England. Don't forget, it's early. And then if you're a Bengals fan, you're probably not too looking forward to Sunday afternoon. But I think the Buckeyes will take care of business and handle things comfortably. Thank you to Dave Biddle for joining us earlier on. Thank you to Ryan Burns from Gopher Illustrated, our 24/7 Sports Minnesota site. We've got plenty of stuff on the site this week. We've got, Basketball Media Day, as I mentioned earlier, Basketball Media Day occurred yesterday on Wednesday. So if you are interested in that, Steve's been kind of handling that for us as we're balancing both. He's got stuff up, so feel free to check that out. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, please turn on notifications, hit that thumbs up button so that you know when we post our podcast videos, we go live, we post our interview videos, all of that stuff. If you're listening to this on your podcast platform of choice, please leave a 5-star review, comment, and all of that. And thank you, Buckeye fans. It's going to be a fun one. I at least got a little bit of practice of what to do for a night game day, because I was very out of practice for that before the the OU game. So at least I sort of know what to do on a Saturday. I do want to say this. I saw a few people out in Seattle that came up and said hi. It's a weird thing for me when people do that, but I love talking to people about Buckeye football. Some of my friends who I was with out in Seattle made fun of me a little bit for it, but that's okay. But if you are out on campus, you see really any of us, Steve, Dave, myself, Garrick Hodge, who is obviously still new to Bucknuts, please feel free, come up, say hi, introduce yourself. It's always nice to meet people who watch or listen to the podcast, read our stuff, all of that. We love doing, we write about the Buckeyes, talk about the Buckeyes for a reason. And if you want to come up and chat, we'd love to do that. So if you see me out on campus, especially for night games, I've got some friends that have tailgates. I usually try and bop around to see some people, since I don't get to have the full experience usually. I try and at least make an appearance when I can, and Saturday's a good opportunity. So if you're out and about on campus and you happen to see me walk by, or you're walking by, feel free to come say hi. There's no issue there. Anyway, Buckeye fans, cheers, and we'll see you next week. Well, I guess I'll see you on the What We Learn Live post game. Cheers.